I feel like we need some dramatic music to introduce this video. A wee bit of Roy Orbison or something. No, the Penny Arcade. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. A massive day for Celtic Football Club. Truly the end of an era. Peter Lawwell will step down today officially as CEO of Celtic Football Club. Tomorrow, Dom McKay will take over on his own in that role. The handover officially begins. 17 years Peter Lawwell has been in that role. It feels quite surreal that we're actually here. There's a lot of things to question about his legacy at Celtic Football Club. We're going to talk about all of that today in this video, and we're going to talk about that handover process and the future of Celtic Football Club. Right then, a very big day, as I've said, a very weird day. I never thought I'd actually see this day. At points, Peter Lawwell, as CEO of Celtic Football Club, felt very Vladimir Putin-like. He was just there, he was always there, and he was always going to be there. I've been alive for 21 years, nearly 22 years, and Peter Lawwell has been CEO of Celtic Football Club for 17 of them. Even 12 months ago, before this disaster of a season came, despite there being negatives and being problems at Celtic Football Club that we could have spoke about, it just felt like that job was safe. He was always going to be there, and it really took till this season until the glaring sort of problems showed and he had to go. Before we go any further with the video, I please urge you, if you haven't already, to hit that big red subscribe button below. We are on our way to 27k. We're only about 100 subs away from that now, so please, if you haven't, we can hit 27k very soon. I also want to hit 30k as close to the new season as possible. I know that's a big ask, but 30k sometime in the next 2 months or so would be fantastic. It would be brilliant for setting up 21-22 here on the channel. So subscribe, make sure and press the like button to share the content out, and get all your friends and family involved. It would mean a lot. It's very exciting because it's now something fresh. It's something to be optimistic about, and it's ultimately going to be something different for Celtic. A completely different mind in that CEO position, and somebody who will hopefully bring a bit of change and a bit of modernisation to Celtic Football Club. Peter Lawwell, however, you know, there's always going to be that lingering question above what his Celtic legacy is. There is positives, there is negatives, there's highs and lows. Ultimately, the last 12 months has determined a lot of that. But, you know, a lot of people will always stand by him. There's always going to be that 50-50, I think, split in the support, like there has been on a lot of occasions over the past 12 months, between, you know, the opinions on Neil Lennon, the opinions on the board, the opinions on, you know, everything else. There's always going to be that sort of 50-50 split, I think, on Peter Lawwell as to whether or not he was a good CEO and got the best out of Celtic Football Club. And I guess that will be put to the test now as we see him go. We could very easily be sitting here in 2, 3, 4 years' time, whatever, and saying, Christ, we were lucky we had Peter Lawwell. Or we could be sitting here in the same amount of time saying, wow, we were restricting ourselves for so long, we were holding ourselves back through all the bad things that were going on with Peter Lawwell in charge. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go, but Peter Lawwell is now gone. He's now away. Well, we'll come on to that in a moment. What is his legacy at Celtic? Is it the good? Is it the bad? Let's just briefly recap. I mean, it's hard to recap 17 years in about 10 minutes, but let's briefly recap his time at Celtic. So the positives, the highs of his time as CEO of Celtic Football Club, there is plenty of them. There is a lot of good moments, and we'll come to the lows in a minute. Don't worry, I'm not here to beat the drum for Peter Lawwell and be the cheerleader. Don't worry about that. 9 in a row. Of course, we've only done it once before in our history. It's only been done twice before in Scottish football, and Peter Lawwell managed to deliver that as CEO over the past decade. A quadruple treble. We'll never see that again. I don't think any team will ever do that again. It's not like a 9 in a row. It's unique in its own way. I mean, it was something I don't think any of us could have expected after we won the first treble, then a double treble, then even a treble, but we managed to go and somehow win a quadruple treble. The financial stability of Celtic Football Club, the main thing that people have praised Peter Lawwell for with his time at Celtic is how we have handled ourselves in a financial sense. We have been a very profitable company. We have been turning over good numbers ever since he came in. When he joined in 2003, I believe the turnover was at £60 million, and it reached one of its highest points in 2019, hitting 83 million, an increase in £23 million there. Of course, it did dip a little bit with the pandemic and such going into 2020, but some very impressive numbers, which has left us in a very good position to compete and win trophies in Scotland, and also just kind of ensure the sustainability of Celtic Football Club. The opening of Lennoxtown's training centre, which has been, of course, the home of the Celtic first team since 2006 or 7, after the move from Barrowfield, a high-class, top-class training facility for the club, which was kind of spearheaded by him and the group at the time. And then finally, of course, the transfers, the way we have done our business on the outgoings here at Celtic Football Club, the profits we have made on players like Kieran Tierney, like Virgil van Dijk, Moussa Dembele, Victor Wanyama. We have made record numbers for these players. We've kind of set the bar in Scottish football for the best of the best, and the money that we make, and we'll probably see that again now with Odsonne Edouard. Granted, that'll be McKay coming in that deals with that. But those are like the main positives that Peter Lawwell's done here, and we can't deny there's been plenty of them. We've seen great success. It's been some of the best times to ever be a Celtic fan. But the last 12 months has really soured that. And you can even look at situations beforehand which has soured that. So the lows of Peter Lawwell's time at Celtic Football Club, and Christ have we felt the lows over the past year. The progression in Europe. Now, yes, we've made the Champions League last 16 on 3 separate occasions since he came in 2003. But is that really good enough? Is it? Let's ask ourselves the question. We've made the Champions League group stages on several occasions, which is good. But when Peter Lawwell came in, he was coming in off the back of us reaching a European final in 2003. Since then, we have been shocking in European knockout stages. The most recent example, of course, we can go to is Copenhagen, which was an embarrassment. We should have been through that tie, and we've not progressed in a European stage, and that has, of course, been down to a lot of the investment in our squad, and probably realising our potential as a football club. Celtic are one of the biggest clubs in Europe, and we're not showing ourselves as a team who can go far in Europe. Yes, there's been ups, there has been. I'm not taking away that we've done well in Europe at times. The wins against Barcelona, the wins against Lazio. Of course, there's been occasions in the last 16 that we've got to, as previously mentioned, but our record in Europe has been terrible. In terms of winning those knockout games after we got to a final before he was brought in. Football has drastically changed, I know, but we need to try and evolve with the times, and we've held ourselves back from doing that. You could just look at the humiliations that we have suffered in Europe as well. We've been battered too many times by, yes, teams who are far, far better than us. But even these losses at Celtic Park that we've seen in away from home, they shouldn't be happening to the extent they are because of how little we have backed our squad and backed our managers. And we've had humiliations at the lower scale as well. Losses to Lincoln Red Imps, losses to Astana, losses to other teams who we should not be losing to. There hasn't been a real progression from when he started off in Europe, I would say. The transfers on the way in, yes, we have signed some great players. There's no denying that. We have spent big at points with players like Odsonne Edouard. The past season we spent $5 million on Albion Ajeti, $5 million on Vasilis Barkas. But there is players who should have been playing for Celtic Football Club that are not playing for Celtic Football Club because the money was apparently too much. We refused to spend about an extra £1 million on signing John McGinn, who is now a Scotland international, regarded as a very good player in the English Premier League. And players like Ivan Toney, who we needed to spend another £2-3 million on, could have been a player who could have saved us or helped us last season, is now in the Premier League, scoring off the back of scoring 30 goals or such for Brentford, or contributing to 30 goals. And this goes far back as well. That happened with Stephen Fletcher. It's happened with other players in the past. There has been a stinginess with Peter Lawwell's CEO at time as CEO that has held us back from, it kind of links into the last question, from progressing as a football club in Europe, but just, making ourselves the best we can be. And ultimately, will Lawwell's kind of, I feel harsh saying it, but I think his legacy will be remembered for the past 12 months. I, for one, will remember Lawwell's legacy for the last 12 months. The gambling and losing of the 10, which should have been a procession. It really should have been. And it kind of goes back as far as Brendan Rodgers. We didn't give Brendan Rodgers the tools that he knew he needed to succeed and go as far as he could with this team, which is why he left the club. And we were told of that. We were told we'd see one day, and we did see, because the past 12 months highlighted all of that. The reappointment, of Neil Lennon, and the continuation of Neil Lennon in that manager's role because of the Old Pals Act with Peter Law was a gambling and costed the 10. The Dubai fiasco all came down to Peter Law and the board that we now have just seen. Everything that's went wrong in the last 12 months, the broken relationship with the fans, the slap in the face one too many times over the past 12 months. That is how I will personally remember Peter Lawwell's legacy. I'll even put aside the European humiliations and the lack of progression and the non-signings of John McGinn and Ivan Toney. I'll put all that aside for a moment. I will remember Peter Lawwell's legacy as the last 12 months, I think. For as much as the good is there, the 9 in a row, the quadruple treble and such, we were slapped in the face so many times. With bizarre statements, being called entitled. I would say still a poor return on our season tickets for last season, and ultimately the failure to realise something that, as I said, should have been a procession. That is how I'll remember the last 12 months. We humiliated ourselves as a football club, and a lot of that came down to the dealings in the board, mostly by Peter Law. The disregard for supporters just seemed so evident over the past 12 months, and people were onto it for years. I was probably naive and foolish enough for years to be coming on this channel and saying, you know what, I back the board, I back Peter Lawwell, because we were doing things right in the financial side of things, and we were still winning trophies. But when it was all blown up onto a large scale over the past 12 months as we watched from home in the middle of a pandemic, it really did show there was just a lack of care and regard for us, and that was hurtful. It just felt venomous, and it's hard to forgive, and it really did kind of sum up the last sort of year for me, and sum up Lawwell's time at the club for me. For as much good as there is of winning stuff there, I would remember the teams for that. I would remember the managers for that. When I think of 9 in a row, when I think of quadruple trebles, I will thank the players, I will thank the managers, I will thank, it's funny because when I say managers here, I really mean Ronnie Dyler. Everybody who I thought was a part of that on the pitch. And when I think of Peter Lawwell, automatically I will think of this last 12 months. And what went wrong. That is honestly how I think of things. And I think that's hard to look past for a lot of supporters. And as I said, I understand there's a portion, and there will be a large portion of the support who will say, nonsense, think of everything we've done and won and all the rest of it. And I get that. Okay, that's your opinion. I respect that. You can praise Peter Lawwell, you can thank Peter Lawwell. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. But for me and for a lot of people, I think that it's just so hard to look past what was a disastrous year we just seen. So, as I said earlier and alluded to, Peter Lawwell's technically not away yet. He's not gone completely. He will continue on in a European role for the next 2 years at Celtic Football Club, and a role that he's been working with UEFA and such, I think, over the past wee while. He was appointed to, what was it? Let me just look at my notes very quickly. He was appointed to UEFA's Professional Football Strategy Council, the PFSC, in August 2017. He's part of the UEFA Club Competitions Committee and an executive board member of the ECA. He's been doing all of that over the past decade, and he's going to continue on working in those sort of roles with Celtic for the next 2 years, I believe, which to an extent is a negative because he still is around the club and we might still have the influence of him there, but I think there is positives to him being in those roles. It does keep up the representation of not just Celtic but Scottish football, and UEFA and European football, and that's important, that we have someone there to fight for us and back us up. But he will continue in those roles. The question is how much of him will rub off on Dom McKay now. I hope not a lot. I want Dom McKay to be his complete own entity. I know that Peter Law has been helping with that transition and helping with that handover and kind of bringing him into the club alongside him, but I'm hoping now that the reins are off and he can now be set free on his own. He will act on his own, he will act with his own fresh ideas, and he will take the club forward himself with his vision. He keeps talking about this modernisation and evolution of Celtic. I want that, and I want every trace of Peter Lawwell's Celtic gone. I want it away, so that Dom McKay can come in and bring what he wants to onto the table. That's what I want to see, and I'm excited for that. It's a video in itself, but I'm already excited about the start with Dom McKay. I think he sounded really intelligent, really good when speaking, especially at that fan media conference. And that's one thing that's vital, is this fan interaction and getting the relationship back between the fans and the club, which Dom McKay looks to already be doing now. And the fan media conference, as controversial as it's been, it's only a first step, and it's a good first step. There is signs there that he wants to go and speak to fans, get fan voice and get fan opinion, and mend that broken relationship. It's a video in its own, but there's certainly positive signs as to where we're heading with Dom McKay in terms of our fan and club relationship. So that does it. Peter Lawwell is away, kind of, and Dom McKay starts tomorrow. It is a big, big day, and it truly is the end of an era for Celtic in that regard, at the top of the boardroom. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know your opinions in the comments below, and see you all next time.